Good morning. Welcome to this special episode of the It's All Life podcast. These first few weeks of this podcast, I'm doing them just me. In the future, we're going to be adding some people in, having guests on the podcast where we just talk about winning in life. This is about winning in your life, in every area of your life. Talk about what I call the 7 domains. And life is the whole package, right? It's not just I'm just going to take my cap off. It's not just how good you are in business. It's not just how good you are in certain areas of your life, how much money you can make and all that. It's everything. It's your whole life. And everything that you do and in one part of your life affects all the other parts of your life. And today I'm going to talk specifically about family. I'm going to talk about relationships, the domain of family and friends, of your relationships and the choices that we make and the impact that they have on our lives and how to overcome the mistakes that we have made in our life. And I got sunshine on me. So there we go. That's better. Yeah, it's a great topic for sure, Farus. So, for those of you that know my story and have known me or followed me for a long time, you know that when I started real estate back in a long time ago, when I started selling real estate, I was very successful very quickly. And then I burned it all to the ground. And I burned it all to the ground because I was doing great in real estate, getting awards, making a lot of money, and had an affair. And today I want to talk about what causes an affair. I want to talk about how to overcome the affair. And I want to talk about the impact that it has on your family. And especially because I have 3 daughters. And I had this so just to give you a frame of what happened. So this last week, all of my family, my 3 daughters, my 5 grandsons, and my 2 sons-in-law, and my youngest daughter's boyfriend. So there was like 3 couples, all my daughters and their guys, and my 5 grandsons all came and spent 5 days with me here in the mountains of New Mexico. And it was the most amazing time. It was a time of healing. It was a time of connection. We've been reconciling our relationship. We've been rebuilding that now for a few years, different levels with different ones of the girls, just based on the things that have happened and how it's impacted them and all of that. But to be able to have this time where we're all together with time and really talk about it and deal with it. So I'm going to share with you some of the things that we did and some of the things I think are critically important for you to do. If your family is in great shape and you've got a healthy family, these are things that you can do to keep it healthy and make it stronger. If you are like me and you screwed things up and it may not have even been your fault, but things that have happened in relationships, in your family, if you want to heal or strengthen your family relationships, there are specific things that you do to make that happen. Now, let's just start with the framing. I'm freestyling this today because I just feel like that I want to share from my heart, my own journey and what has happened and how to overcome an affair and how to unbreak your family, how to unbreak broken relationships in your family. And I want to talk about how to overcome an affair in this. If you are having an affair, step number 1, quit. Because it's all a lie and it will burn your life to the ground. Period. Okay, so the first step, how you overcome an affair is just stop having it. Okay, and this was like, okay, well, I should have done that, right? Okay, well, I didn't. And because of that, there were so many things that happened that were repercussions of it. So having an affair is a mistake. Okay, it was one of the 3 greatest mistakes. I have a list. Probably going to someday share them with you, I'll show some of them today. I have a list of the 3 biggest mistakes I've ever made in my life and the 3 greatest regrets that I have in my life, and they're not the same. A mistake means you make a bad decision, you do something, it was a mistake, and then you deal with it. But today, the repercussions of it or the impact of it does not still haunt you. Okay, I was like, okay, I had an affair. That was one of the 3 biggest mistakes of my life. But the affair is not what haunts me. Okay, I made the mistake. I've owned it. I've repented for it. I have changed. I have set my life up in a way to make sure that would never happen again. And that's that. I also have regrets. So in this context of family, here's my biggest mistake: having an affair. Okay, one of my three biggest mistakes. My biggest regret, and this is one of my three biggest regrets, and this is number one. It's the top of the list, and that is I walked out on my girls. I walked out on my family, and I essentially abandoned them. Now, legally, I did not abandon them. I still did visitation. I'd still pick them up and spend time with them and all of that kind of stuff. But emotionally and mentally and in many ways physically, I abandoned them. And at times financially, because when I burned my life to the ground, there were times when I was just broke. I did not pay child support. And I've since then, I've paid all of it. And my children are all grown and all that kind of stuff. So that's all in the past. So there's the mistake piece. But the regret was that I walked out on them and they grew up and became adults without their father actively a part of their life. And the impact of that is huge. And I think the impact of families today where there is single moms raising kids, which I have huge respect for and gratitude to single moms, to single parents everywhere who stay committed to the task and who do the work and take on the responsibility of raising their children. There's nothing in this society that's more critical than that. But the impact and the cost and the damage of a family raising children or a child when both the mother and father are not there is inestimable. And this is what happened to me this weekend. So my kids all got here this weekend. And so Brooklyn is my youngest. I'm just going to tell you a story about Brooklyn because it was the most impactful for me this weekend of something that she said. So this is, again, and all this is parts of like how you heal and how you reconcile. I'm kind of jumping around here, but that's all right. So I wanted to heal my relationship with my daughters. I wanted to do it for a long time, but it takes an amazing amount of commitment and will to do it when you have to know they may not respond the way I want them to respond. This may take a long time. This may not go well. This is going to be painful. And I was ready for that. And all of this didn't just start with, okay, they came this weekend and we just ended up having these great conversations. That didn't happen. You have to create the frame. You have to open the space and create an opportunity for this healing to happen. And part of that is just at one level or another, you have to have set up an opportunity to have conversation, to have straightforward, honest, open conversations where everything is safe. Now, I journal every day. And so in this whole process, even as I'm preparing for my daughters to come, I am journaling how to make this happen and what to do with this. So my oldest daughter, we grew up, I used to be a preacher, for those of you that don't know that. Before I got into real estate, I was a preacher for 15 years. And then I got into real estate, which was it wasn't when I started having problems in my marriage. It was when the problems in my marriage started getting exposed because you don't have the same kind of environment. You don't have the same kind of protections. And so now, instead of being, for me, at the church office every day with the staff around and all of that kind of stuff where there's accountability and all of that, now I'm in real estate, I'm out and I'm going on appointments, I'm all over the place, and there's no accountability. You can do anything you want to. You can work as late as you want. There's just because I can have appointments with clients, buyers, sellers, listing appointments and all that. So you kind of have your own world and you can have control of it and you can do whatever you want, go wherever you want and make it and lie about anything you want to, and nobody's going to bust you on it. At least not for a while. And so when that happened, that's when I got into the affair. So let me go back. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to talk about how to overcome an affair. One, before you have it, don't have it. Now, why do people have affairs? They have affairs because their current marriage isn't working right. There's a problem in your marriage. There is a problem in your marriage, and you got to own that. Something is not right in your marriage. There is nothing, when everything is great in your marriage, when there is affection and there is trust and there is openness and there is intimacy and there is support and security and there's conversation and there's good, when there is a healthy relationship between a husband and a wife, when there is a healthy relationship in that union, you're not going to have an affair. It will not happen. Okay? Because all of your needs, the emotional needs of a woman, the sexual needs of a man, and they interchange, and I get that, but there are differences. When those are fully met, you're insulated. Now, does it mean it's impossible for somebody to, get seduced or whatever? No, it's not impossible, but it's sure less likely to happen. And you also have to have your commitment. So you have your commitment to your marriage, you have your commitment to your spouse, you have that commitment to your family. And with that, then you deal with shit. You deal with problems. And what I wouldn't do is ever deal with the problem. So whenever there was a problem in my marriage, i.e. something I did not like or a need that was not being met, I never said anything about it. Why? Because I was the ultimate conflict avoider. I was the ultimate people pleaser. And if we just pretend like nothing is wrong, nothing will be wrong, which is all a lie. So when there are problems, you have to address the problems. You have to have the straightforward conversations. So the same thing that will prevent the problem from happening is also the same thing that will heal the damage that is caused after the problem has happened, which is what I am doing now. So what I should have been doing 25 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, what I should have been doing, not 40 years ago, but anyway, but when I first got married, what I should have been doing was having straightforward conversation with my wife and talking to her about the things that weren't okay, the things that I was not okay with. And she should do the same with me. And I can't tell you to this day if she ever had those conversations with me. Like, did she hold on? Did she have stuff that she didn't like in our relationship that she was unwilling to talk about? I don't know. I honestly do not know. And if she did bring them up, it was like I was going to just like, okay, honey, whatever you want. And I would try to accommodate it and all that kind of stuff because I wanted to avoid conflict and confrontation and let's just keep everything nice and smooth. And then I had shit that I was not happy about in my marriage. Okay? Now, I'm just going to tell you some things, guys, that will mess up marriages, guys and gals that will mess up marriages. One, if you don't take care of your body. Okay? One of the foundational pieces of a marriage relationship, and whether it's married or not married, whatever it is, of a romantic, significant other relationship is physical attraction. And for a guy, it's extremely important because men are very visually stimulated. They just are. That's why porn is is the number one watch videos on the internet is porn videos. Why? Because men primarily, and I'm not saying women are, I'm just saying this is it. And I'm a guy, so I'm going to talk from my perspective. Okay. Men are visually stimulated, sexually. And if their wife is hot, which she hopefully, and usually is when they first meet, she's hot. And he's attracted to her. And so at that moment, there's this attraction. If you do not take care of your body, and this goes both ways, and guys, this is the same for you too. Your wife is attracted to you physically because of the way you look, the way you take care of yourself, and then you get married and you quit taking care of yourself. You gain 20 pounds, you gain 50 pounds, you gain 80 pounds. And you don't take care of yourself, that's going to be a problem. Now, that was a problem in our relationship. And part of it is life. When a lady has a baby, she gains weight. Okay, now she's got to work to take that weight back off. First baby, no big deal. When our oldest daughter was born, she lost her weight pretty quick. Second, not so much. She gained a ton of weight while she was pregnant. And then after she was pregnant, she never lost it. And wasn't attractive to me. I was not turned on by my wife physically. And that was a problem. And so all of that over time created this susceptibility, this distance. So we did not have great romance in our relationship. We did not have good intimacy in our relationship. There were other pieces to it that are not really relevant for this conversation, except to say things that aren't right, you got to talk about it. I want this from you. I need this from you. How can we make this happen? How can we make this so that your needs are fulfilled and my needs are fulfilled? And this is a conversation. You have to have these conversations. If you're not willing to have these conversations, it is going to burn to the ground. We do not, people, I don't know how it worked generations ago. Like my dad, before he died 2 years ago, we had a lot of conversations in his last couple of months when I spent nearly the full 7.5 weeks before he died, from the time we found out he had cancer till he died. I spent most of that time with him. We had so many conversations, and that my mom and dad had a unhealthy marriage. It was unhealthy the entire time. And my dad was, as far as he ever admitted, and as far as I know, he was totally faithful the entire time. Now, what's crazy is my mom, who was raised totally sexually dysfunctional, which means sex was bad and evil and it was to be avoided and it was only for procreation and you just had to endure it, and men were horny and that's just part of their weakness and you just got to deal with that and get over it. And that was just kind of the way they did it. My mom had an affair. I did not know this. I did not know this. When I was in high school, my mom had an affair. She had an affair with a preacher. Go figure. I did not know this. My dad's telling me this, a month before he passes, and he's just like, "You probably need to know all this." And I'm like, okay, well, that does kind of make some pieces of the puzzle come together of why I am the way I am and what all that happened. And then I had an affair, and now I have one of my daughters. She had an affair, and that ended up with a lot of stuff happening. I mean, like her husband had an emotional affair, whatever the fuck that means. And then she had an affair, and then they tried to resolve it, and they didn't, and got a divorce. So it went bad. Good news is they got back together. They got remarried, and they're together today. And they had their second child in December, and I'm so happy for them. I like to think I had a little influence in that, because that conversation of helping my daughter get through that was very powerful for me, and I hope it was powerful for her. And they're back together, but the work is not over, my friends. And they're buying their first house. There's just all kinds of great things happening, but you got to deal with the stuff all along the way. You have to have these conversations, straightforward conversations. You have to have commitment, and you have to have straightforward conversations. When something is not right, do not ignore it, do not deny it, do not avoid it. The conflict and confrontation, yes, sometimes has to come. It is worth the fight. It is worth the discomfort. It is worth the pain. Whatever happens is worth it. You have to do this. And the longer you delay it, the harder it is going to be, the more damage is going to be caused, and the more likely it is to be a bigger explosion. Little problems do not go away. The little problems become big problems. So what I want to ask you right now is, if you're watching this live or if you're watching this as a replay, where have you had in relationships times that you look back on now and realize, I should have done this and I didn't do it? Or if you're in a situation right now and you're like, I'm here, what do I do? Ask these questions. I will engage with you in conversation in the chat, in the comments afterwards, just to give you my wisdom from the experiences that I have had on learning how to overcome this, and just from the work I've done, from the growth I've done, from the coaching I've had, from the therapy, from all of the training that I've had as a leader on how to have great relationships. I think great relationships are the foundation of a great life. Okay, I think there are three things that matter more than anything else. One is your relationships. Okay, who you love in your relationship. First, your relationship with God. Two, your relationship with your family. And then that's number one is relationship. Number two is your health, your body, taking care of your body. And number three is making money. I know this is going to freak some people out. This is a different conversation for a different time. But making money is how you basically, all the other stuff you want to create in your life and do is better when you have money. So if you want to talk about the three keys to winning in your whole life, great relationships, great relationship with God, great relationship with family and friends, the right people in your life. Number two is taking care of your body and your health, because it's your vehicle for, and we talked about that on last week's podcast. And number three is making money. Why? Because making money is a way that you are able to have choices and options in your life and to live a life of abundance rather than a life of scarcity. And the number one connected to relationships, this is why it's all life. Well, yeah, but money's not that important. Are you kidding me? What is the number one cause of fights and conflict in marriage? Money. And almost always it is a lack of money, not because we have so much money, we're going to fight over what to do with this money. No, that's not what happens. We fight because there is a lack of money, there's scarcity, and there's this sense of in scarcity, we operate in fear and insecurity. And the number one need of most women, especially in a marriage, is security. It's the maternal instinct. Now, I think all this current bullshit about men and women being the same is all bullshit. I think men and women are equal, 100%, but they're not the same. And this thing that's trying to happen in our culture of like, it's like relative, it's fluid. It's like you can be a man, you can be a woman. You got to kind of choose. You can be, if you want to be a fish, you can be a fish. If you want, whatever you want to be, you can be this. I think we've got to wake up and start speaking. And if if especially your kids, because your kids are getting programmed on this. And if they say that there's a men are men, and women are women, males are male, and they'll literally can flunk they can be given a failing grade because they don't bow to this new lie that says it's all fluid and you can choose your gender and all that kind of stuff. All that's bullshit. All that is, you want to talk about the undermining the foundation of great relationships? Well, you just did it. Okay, just did it. So that's a different conversation. I'm happy to have that conversation, and we'll probably have more on that conversation at a further time. But you got to deal with the stuff and understand that whatever she needs and whatever he needs, your needs are different, and you got to come together on that and integrate it with that. Okay, connecting the money piece in here. When you have plenty of money, it makes a lot of decisions easier, and it takes a lot of the stress away. And because women, mothers, maternal instinct, women's highest value is security most of the time. Okay, am I right on? If you let me know if you agree with this, that women need, when a woman is insecure, like, she will do whatever she has to do. She will take over. She will, if she's a single mom, she will do whatever is required to create security for her family, to make sure her family is taken care of. And so when there's a lack of money, women are insecure. When there's instability in a relationship, women are insecure. And so they will do whatever is required, which is what they're supposed to do. But if you have, especially for you husbands, if you're making plenty of money, you take care of your body, you make plenty of money, and you take care of your family and your relationship with your wife and your relationship with your kids, your life's going to be great. Okay, it's not that. This is not happy wife, happy life. That's bullshit. Okay, happy wife, happy wife. If she's happy, that's great, awesome. But happy wife does not necessarily mean that you're going to have a happy life. Okay, I took care of my family. I provided. I made enough money to take care of us. Was money ever an issue? Not that much, but it was a little bit. We just kind of lived within our means because that was the way I was raised. And all of that, but there were things that were not addressed that she was happy, or I felt, I thought she was happy, and I think she was happy. I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy because I was not having all my needs fulfilled. And so I made me susceptible to have an affair. Now, I don't blame her for that. Now, this is a big piece of this, of how to overcome an affair and how to unbreak a relationship. You are responsible. I don't care if you're a man or a woman. I don't care if you're the husband or the wife. Doesn't matter. You're responsible. You're responsible for making sure your marriage goes great. You're responsible for making sure that your marriage is close and secure and intimate and safe and whole and healthy and fulfilling. It's your responsibility. If anything goes wrong, it's your fault. So whatever happened to my affair, I can say, well, my wife wasn't meeting my needs, and she wasn't sexually satisfying me, and she had gained weight, and she was overweight, and so I wasn't attracted to her, and she was, didn't know how to be intimate, whatever. I can say anything I want to say, and it does not matter. It's my responsibility. Now, does that mean I just had to suck it up and accept it? No, it means I was responsible to fix it. Now, can you fix everything in a marriage when if the other one's not willing? No, you can't. But if you don't say anything about it, it's your fault. It's your responsibility. So first is, whatever happens in any relationship, just like anything in life, you got to be personally responsible. It is my responsibility. If this doesn't go right, it's my fault. Okay, my relationship with my daughters, my responsibility. Not theirs, not their responsibility to reach out and heal this relationship. I'm the dad, my responsibility. It's on me to do that. Okay, now if you are a child, I want to just talk for a second to those of you whose fathers left. Maybe it was like mine, like I did, where they completely walked out and were pretty much absent, or maybe they just split up, got a divorce and all that. If you are the child of that situation, like you are my daughter, in her situation or their situations, it's your responsibility to fix it. Okay, now you can sit there and say, well, it's my dad's responsibility to do it. Well, I agree with you that it's his responsibility, but if he's not going to do it because he's scared or he's wounded or he's full of shame and guilt and he's hiding out, whatever his issues are, you can't make him do anything. So if you want to make it better, you have to take responsibility and say, I'm going to take responsibility, and I am going to reach out to my dad, and I am going to love him. I'm going to confront him. I am going to do whatever I can to resolve the relationship. Is there any guarantees that that's going to work? No. There's no relationship. There were no guarantees that my daughters would accept me back as their dad and would be willing to reconcile the relationship. But it was still my responsibility to take action, to do what I could do. And so all of the decisions that I've been making for years now, not all, but over the years, as I've just gotten more and more to a place where I'm like, I feel this emptiness, I feel this need to do it. And guys, I waited way too long. Okay. I mean, I waited way too long. It's been over 20 years since I left. And we've talked and all that. And over the last 2 years, especially, we've started reconciling and having conversations, but I've still not been as proactive as I should have been. And that has been part of what changed. So part of me making this move to New Mexico and living in the mountains is because it put me closer to my kids. They were able to get in their car and drive here in a few hours, and we're able to be together. I can get on the weekend. I could drive, and I could drive to my daughter's house. One of them's 4.5 hours away, and two of them are 4.5 hours away, and one of them's about 6 hours away. I can get in the car and drive. I can go see them for the weekend. Okay. I couldn't do that for a long time when I was in California, and they were just spread out. It was just a different thing. So I made decisions to put myself in a place where we could do that. And I wanted to have a place where that my grandsons would come and want to stay and have fun. And it was amazing this weekend to watch them just have the time of their life and to play and be boys out here in the mountains and to be able to hike a mountain. It's just so many things that we were able to do together, and the lessons that you can learn in life. That's a whole different conversation. But you have to take responsibility, my friends. You have to take responsibility to fix it. Take responsibility to fix it. And then you have to create the opportunity. Okay, so here's the next thing that happened. I was like, okay, how am I going to make the most of this weekend or these 5 days with my children and their families to really bond us, like to bring us together? And I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to have a conversation. We need to have a time that we can sit down, and most of the time we're just gonna have fun. Just let things happen, enjoy, create great memories, do things, laugh, have fun, engage them in conversation, be 100% present, no judgment, no blame, and for me, just totally allowing them to be them, allowing them to be, because my daughters are all close and their husbands kind of hang, so they're letting them engage and have conversation. And I sat there literally every night. We sat out here at the fire pit. Every single night they were here, 4 nights. I guess it's 4 nights that we were all here. So it was Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday night. So it's 4 nights. And we sat around the fire pit, having drinks, smoking cigars, and my daughters, I probably shouldn't say this because if anybody, they may be embarrassed if this gets out, but let's just say we sat around, we had a good time talking around the fire and just laughing, and they're telling stories and crying, and just like my oldest daughter was just sharing stories of her growing up that were just the girls were just bawling, and it was just like, it was beautiful to watch. It was beautiful to be a part of. And a lot of the time I'm just sitting there just enjoying their presence and letting them be them. But I also knew I had to create an opportunity to engage in a conversation that said, okay, let's get everything out in the open and let's talk about it. And so on last week, my oldest daughter, texted me and said, hey, what are we doing for church on Sunday? Are we going to have our own service, or are we going to go somewhere? And I'm like, okay, well, that's an uncomfortable conversation. I'm very spiritual. I have a strong relationship with God. Anyway, I have a closer, active relationship with God today than I've ever had in my life. And I have conversations I journal my conversations with God every day. And so I'm like, I feel spiritually whole. And I've had a conversation with God a lot of times over the last couple of years of, do I need to go back to church? Because I haven't really gone to church, actively been involved in a church in 13 years. And there's reasons for that, all mine, which I may talk about more later as my faith, my relationship with God. But just suffice it to say, for today, I've not been in a church, actively engaged in a church. I've gone to church a few times. I've done stuff like that. I pray every day. I read scripture regularly, and all of that. But my daughters, they'll go to church. They have children. They all take them to church. And so they're wanting to create this faith path for their children and for themselves. So she's like, are we going to have our own church service? And I'm like, number one, I would have never thought about it. Number two, I was not comfortable with it. I'm like, I used to be a preacher, so it's not like I don't know how to do this. I can do anything I want. I know how to do it. But like, I know the game. I know what they're going to want. So we're like, okay, so we're going to have our own worship service. I immediately knew the answer because I'd been praying about stuff like this. Like, and I pray for wisdom all the time. So when a question comes up, I'm like, I know the answer. The answer was we're going to have our own service. We're going to have communion, which is the Lord's Supper. If you're not a Christian, don't worry about it. It's just like it's the remembrance of the Last Supper that Jesus had with his disciples before he was crucified. And there is the wine, and then there is the unleavened bread, which was part of the Passover ceremony from Judaism. That was then because Jesus was a Jew. Okay, Jesus was a Jew. All right, so people are like, there's Christianity and Judaism. Well, Christianity is Judaism with a Messiah. So anyway, I'm like, we're going to have that. And I'm going to use this as an opportunity for healing and for communion, not only communion with God, but communion with each other. And I'm like, I know, so we're going to do it on the mountain. So the mountain, I go hiking up every morning. I'm going to take them on this hike. And then we have that's for 5 grandsons that are ages 9, 7, 7, 4, and 6 months. I'm like, we're going. We're just going to all go. So we did. And I'm like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this as an opportunity just to talk about what happened and express to the girls my regret, to ask their forgiveness, and to really just open everything up and then give them the opportunity to ask any questions or to say what's on their mind. Like just to express how they feel about what happened, about me, whatever they need to say, and express it, to be free to express it. And this is totally a safe space. So I created this space where God was in the center of it. And it was also in a place that was like in a context of a great experience. In other words, we were having fun as a family. We'd already hiked the mountain the day before. Now we're hiking it again. They knew we had our communion stuff. And so we're going. The kids, we just allow them to play. And we sit around on some big rocks on the side of the mountain in the shade. And we just talk. And I just created that environment. I just set that up to do that. And the most impactful moment of that was my daughter, Brooklyn, my youngest daughter. And she was, after I had said what I had to say, then I just asked him a question. What do you, I just want to give all of you the opportunity, including my sons-in-laws. I want to give you guys the opportunity to say anything you want to say, ask any questions you've got. Let me know how you feel, So Brooklyn spoke up first, my youngest, which was not what I really expected, but it was the most beautiful thing I've heard in my life. It was amazing. It was painful. It was just heart-rending, gut-wrenching because it hurt. And she said, she was 3 years old when I left. Okay, just to give you that context. So she grew up without me. Now I would pick her up and visit her and all that every week until I moved to California when she was about 14 or 15, I guess 15. But I was basically not there emotionally and physically in her life every day on a daily basis. And she said, I'm just going to paraphrase what I remember her saying. And she said first, she said, this was harder. This was like unimaginable pain for me. And she says, and I've forgiven you for what you did, but I will never forget. And she said, I have always wondered who I would have become if you had not left. And she said, that person that I could have become, she said, I'm happy with who I am today, but I will always grieve the loss of the person that I could have become if my dad had not left. And in that moment, everything was just like raw and open. She went on and talked for a little bit. I went over and walked over and hugged her. because she was standing while she was talking. I went over and hugged her. She wouldn't even hug me back. And it was painful. And I knew she was just in a moment of pain. Like she just was raw. And I just held her for a minute, and she just stood there. And I mean, later we hugged, and but in that moment, there was just this intense pain, and there was this distance. There was just this incredible distance between us, this barrier of pain and suffering and grief and all of that she felt. And I will not lie, it was an incredibly awkward moment. This was like, it's not like in a movie where it's like, the heavens opening, angels are singing the chorus of hallelujah. This was like gut wrenching. And, but it was a moment of truth, and it was a moment of safety and openness, and it was a moment of healing. But sometimes the way you heal is by doing surgery. They say time heals all wounds. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, like, does time heal wounds? Yes, but this idea time heals all wounds is bullshit. Just is. Okay, if you have a wound and you don't take care of it and treat it, no, a wound can get infected and kill you. If you break your arm, the arm will eventually heal over time, but it could take infinitely longer if you don't put a cast on it and protect it and take care of it. Okay, if you get shot and you have a bullet lodged inside of you and they don't remove the bullet, the wound may not heal because the bullet's still there. So the poison, whatever it is that can cause infection, all that kind of, there are wounds that will not heal on their own, and time doesn't heal all wounds. Sometimes you have to take action. Sometimes you have to do stuff, and you also have to know that there are some wounds that they may heal, but the damage is permanent. So I'm just giving us an analogy. If you get your arm cut off, the wound can heal, but your arm's not going to grow back. You can't get it. So we're sitting here in this conversation, and Brooklyn is saying, I lost the person that I could have become if my dad had not left. That person never materialized. That person died. There was a wound that will never, it can heal, but there will always be a life that could have happened that never happened. Like an arm being amputated, it's gone. The arm will never be there. So what do you do about it? And all you can do about it is you can move on. And you can say, okay, well, how can I build a life? Like my grandfather's arm was cut off in a cotton gin accident when he was in his early 20s. Almost bled to death, but he didn't. So he lived his whole life with one arm. I mean, he had his arm cut off right below the elbow. So he had part of an arm, and so he had, he could do some stuff, but it was never going to come back. So what did he do? He learned how to tie shoes with one hand. He learned how to do everything with one hand. How he did that, I mean, I still remember watching him tie his shoes, and it's like, how in the world can you tie shoes with one hand? He could. It was just crazy how he could do it. But so it's always going to be there, but you can make it better over time. And then the last thing that Brooklyn said was, she said, I've always felt like I was an afterthought. So last year she had her 25th birthday, and I did not get her anything. I didn't talk to her. I basically, in her mind, I forgot her birthday. I don't remember. Honestly, I do not honestly remember. Did I forget it, or did I think about it and just not reach out because I was busy or whatever other bullshit? That was, by the way, that was the same week that my wife walked out on our marriage. So that was when anyway, that's a different story. You can go back and watch a previous episode of why I'm getting my third divorce. But that all happened the same week. And so I was going through my own drama or trauma or whatever you want to call it. But I didn't reach out to her. And she said, that hurt me. I took it really personal. I got really upset. And she said, it hurt me more than it should have. And I'm like, I don't know if it hurt her more than it should have. It should have hurt her. I should have acknowledged her birthday, gotten her something, talked to her, called her. I mean, that's like, what was I thinking? So she talked about that. She said, I've always felt like I was an afterthought. And that probably more than anything else ripped my heart apart. My youngest daughter feels like she is an afterthought to her dad. And I made a promise to myself right then that I'm like, she will never feel that way again. Now, what do you got to do when you make a commitment? You have to keep your commitment. You have to do what you say you're going to do. And that's what I'm committed to doing. So I did a journal, and a prayer journal, conversation with God to my daughter, to Brooklyn, that I just shared with her about what came up for me and what I wanted to say after what she shared on Sunday, and just thanking her for sharing that, acknowledging her pain, acknowledging what had happened again, just expressing my regret and my pain for what I did, and making her the promise that she was not an afterthought for me, and that she would never feel that way again with me. You can't heal all the hurt, but you can overcome the damage of any relationship. And there are no guarantees, but you are responsible to take care of and take the actions to do your best to make it happen. And so what I want to challenge you with today is, number one, to simply be honest with yourself about what's not working in your relationships. Where's there an issue that's been buried, that you've denied or you not wanted to address, and you just act like, it'll be okay, and that you've not dealt with because you wanted to avoid the conflict or the confrontation? My friend, the conflict and confrontation is not going to be fun. It's painful. There's just no way around it. All right? But on the other side of it is where the great stuff is. That's where the good stuff is. We spend so much of our time trying to stay comfortable in avoiding conflict and confrontation. But in that, we rob ourselves of the ability to have really true, fulfilling, great relationships. So be honest with yourself, number one. Number two, have the conversations. Have the conversations. Have the conversations. The confrontation, the conflict that's going to come, just initiate it. Number three, take responsibility. Don't wait for somebody else to do it. Don't act like it's their job. If they want it, they can do it. I'm not going to be the only one and all that. You may be the only one, my friend. You may be the only one in that conversation that wants to reconcile. You may be the only one willing to be responsible. And that may happen, but at least you will be free. And most of the time, it will work out great. And on the other side of that is true joy and love, and it's just like, it's beautiful. Where I am right now with my daughters and how I feel. I have such great, and they did too. And we texted about how the weekend went and all that, and it's just so awesome. But you got to take responsibility and take the initiative. And then finally, is you got to create, for this to happen, you have to create a space where there is no judgment, there is no criticism, there is no defending yourself. You're not like, I just want to hear what you feel. And you just accept it. You take it and you say, I hear you. I see you. I get you. You don't have to agree with them. Then you have your opportunity to share how you feel. Well, this is how I feel. I respect what you said. I feel this, this, and this. And it's obviously we don't feel the same on that, and I accept that. We don't have to feel the same on everything. But you have to go into this with maturity enough to say, I will be willing to listen without judgment. I will be willing to accept differences, and to know that we can have a great relationship even with differences. But you got to be willing to go there. And the biggest piece of this is courage. Just having the courage to tell yourself the truth, take responsibility, initiate the conversation, and allow for safety. Just to listen. To have the humility to just listen, forget your ego, don't defend yourself, don't make excuses, don't justify, because all that's bullshit. And just see what happens in the relationship. And my promise to you is that on the other side of it will be liberation, will be freedom. Freedom in your relationship. It may not go the way you want it, but if it does, and it goes and you get reconciliation, then now you have freedom in that relationship, in that space with my girls, that there's not this distance between us anymore. There's no barriers between us. Is everything perfect and completely overcome? No, probably not. But we're in a place of freedom and safety now where we can make that happen. Or on the other side, if you go into this conversation, the other person totally blows up and totally judges you, condemns you, they blame you, they leave in a huff, they say, I never want to see you again or talk to you again. At least on the other side of that, you are free because you were responsible, and you can be free from the relationship. And there will be you don't have to hold on to guilt or shame because you did what you could to resolve it. There are no guarantees, except the guarantee that when you are true to yourself and you are true to them, you can be free. Free from guilt, free from shame, free from regret, and free to be happy. So with that, my friends, if you have comments, questions, please post them. If you think this will help somebody else, please share this with anybody that you feel like will be helped by this. If you're here and have not yet given it a thumbs up, give the video a thumbs up because that helps this get seen by more people. And if you have things you'd like for me to talk about, questions you have about winning in life, any area of life we can talk about, any area of life. Okay, we can talk about finance, we can talk about family, we can talk about fitness, we can talk about faith, we can talk about fun, we can talk about your focused purpose in your life, we can talk about all kinds of stuff. How do you figure out what you want in your life? We can talk, how do you figure out what you're supposed to do in your life? How do you figure out what your dream is? We can talk about any of that. Just let me know what you want, what you need, what I can help do to serve you. I am here to serve you. I will engage with you directly in the comments. So have a great day, everybody. Play to win. We'll talk soon.